Reddit. What does the wealthiest person you know do for a living? The wealthiest person I know and hang out with regularly built a company, IT services, and then sold it for several $100 million. He now runs a company that does the same kind of IT services in a different field. He figured out a winning business formula and is just repeating it in a different market. It's a guy I work with. He started with one Jimmy John's franchise and turned it into 10 franchises. Ran them for 10 years, then sold them all and dumped the money into the stock market and real estate. He did this all while working as an airline pilot, currently still working at the airline. This dude owns and flies his own private jet on top of all that. Inherited small factory from his father. Developed it to huge nationwide company. Still goes to work there every day despite being worth hundreds of millions. I work for a lady who inherited around $100 million. She just buys real estate and sets them up as rentals, and I do general maintenance on them. I also rent from her. She lives like she's on a pension and pays me in magic beans half the time. A true embodiment of money does not buy happiness. I've tried many times to push her to go enjoy her wealth, but she lives with the mindset that, because she does not have a partner, why bother buying a villa in Tuscany? Or jump on a flight to Bora Bora and enjoy the beach and a nice seafood banquet. So instead, she tends to sit on her couch and drink wine with the TV on in the background. I got a shock one day when she emptied a pillow slip of Krugerrands onto her kitchen bench, as it turns out had somewhere in the range of 2.5 million in Krugers, Maples, and Sovereigns just sitting in pillow slips in her walk-in wardrobe. My friend sold RuneScape Gold. He made a fortune. My buddy owns a cybersecurity and general tech firm here in town. Small town, hardly any competition. He's a badass marketer, so he has contracts with the state's NFL team and the largest Porsche dealer in the Southeast. He also owns a salvage yard, oddly enough. He balls and he's so FN cool. His employees all get a track day once a year and box seats to the biggest games. He's also generous with in-town initiatives, like toy drives and tech donations to public schools in the ghetto and the town's special school. Additionally, he invites the community out to free meals he hosts in his office space, which is gorgeous. He hires pizza and hot dog carts and lets people walk up and get a plate. For his buddies, he turns the office space, which has a motofuggin' basketball court in it, into movie viewing / MMA fight and sports night. There's also a theater in there. He charges nothing, has stuff catered in and has a full bar, wants nothing in return but for everyone to have a good time and get home safe. He's a fantastic father to his teenage daughter, too. The way she adores him, dotes on him, picks lint off his suit, fixes his hair. He's been so gentle with her all her life and she's growing up to be just as gentle as cool as her dad. Damn, I just wrote a love letter lol. I just admire someone who genuinely cares about people and doesn't let money go to his head. He's friggity diggity awesome. One of the first 100 employees of Microsoft. I was friends with a guy from a rich family. They lived on a lake with a private dock, in a multi-million-dollar home. Microsoft guy was their neighbor. They used to have these game nights where we'd all get together, have cocktails, and play pretty silly games, Cards Against Humanity, Pictionary, that kind of thing. I was really good at these games, and it impressed Microsoft guy. He wrote me a glowing letter of recommendation, praising my intelligence because of this. It helped me, an immigrant, land an engineering job at a huge aerospace company. I've worked on multiple satellites that are currently in orbit, and I've touched stuff that's on the surface of Mars now. Hell, I was able to buy a house before I turned 30, all because this man thought I was clever and witty, and wanted to help me out. Needless to say, the imposter syndrome I feel every day is unbelievable. My ex-father-in-law. He used to own a huge factory that made Nike and Adidas shoes in the 80s and early 90s. That's right, sneakerheads. Big sneaker companies don't actually make any of these shoes. Sure, they design them, but they outsource them to an OEM manufacturing plant / company in Asia. Pivoted to real estate investment / developments. Imagine having the dollar to buy real estate and land at 80s and 90s prices, and is now worth $150 million plus. He's a complete hypocrite and a sociopath though. Treated service workers like slaves and was generally an unpleasant person to be around. Sure, he's rich, but he sure seemed unhappy all the time. Neither of them do anything for work, really. Their dads started extremely successful private equity firms. Their families are easily at the hundreds of millions level. They both randomly start vanity companies or projects while actually spending most of their time on traveling and yoga retreats. They're both extremely smart and very kind people who care deeply about their favorite causes. If you go to a top business school, you'll meet tons of people like this. Funny enough, none of the extremely wealthy students I befriended ever offered to help any of us non-rich students with anything. If I texted our class WhatsApp group asking for a place to crash in NY, the people who volunteered to help had small studios. The ones who I know had $60 million places in Manhattan never offered anything. Super rich people are truly strange. Person 1. Classmate from high school whose dad owns and sells medical tech companies. He wears New Balance shoes and plain shirts, one of the most genuine individuals I've ever met. Real family man and a major benefactor to my alma mater. Person 2. My neighbor who bought the property next door and built a house in the off chance her sophomore high school daughter decided to go to college in the area in a few years. The house is vacant and I see someone stop by occasionally to check up on the place. She is real rude. CFO of a large public company. He works 80-hour weeks. Fuck that. I know the CBO of an international bank. He works a minimum 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. On Sundays he, only, works 6 to 8 hours. In his downtime he's on standby for any issues that may crop up, to the point where he once responded to a client within 15 minutes. At 3:45 a.m. He's working when I'm sleeping. He's working when I'm at lunch. He's working while flying abroad to visit family. He's working during car rides in between meetings with said family. He's working while working, co-attending 2 separate meetings while replying to clients. I have no idea how he works so hard and yet remains so calm. He's basically a Swiss Army C-suite, since he does everything from sales, to tactical planning, to IT support, to shareholder discussions. When I talk to him about it, his response is I'm only 51, I'm still young. He also has a high needs child, so his work hours are 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. so that he can fetch his child from the daycare, since his office is closer to the daycare than his wife's. That man is borderline superhuman. Pig farmer. I kid you not. He's my father's old friend. I visited him once when my father and I were passing through the state. He lives in a modest classic farmhouse with his wife, both in their 70s. I mentioned I was starting a school in West Africa as we were catching up. A few weeks later I got a text asking how much it would cost. I told him $40K, thinking it was really nice of him if he wanted to send a few dollars. I got a check for $40K. I thought it would take me years to raise that. I'm typing this from Sierra Leone because he also paid for the house I thought would take years to raise funds for.